Everybody, and thank you for joining today. It's nice to see so much interest in this topic, and we've had sessions in various regions and quite a lot of participation. So it's nice to see so many of our existing clients and our partners, and some potential partners and clients as well. My name's Colin Titmus. I'm CEO and the former product director at MacroView. And I'm excited to be here today to show you just how easily you can add MacroView DMS to supercharge your SharePoint document management system. Please remain muted through the session if you could. And if you have any questions, raise them in the Q&A panel. And I'll get to those in the time slot we've got at the end to have some discussion. So first of all, look, we all know how important a good DMS solution is in any business today. With all the information we are managing on our daily lives, being able to quickly and easily find the files and information we need is more important than ever. We need to be able to access this information from anywhere. We need security, version control, retention, etc. All those things you'd expect from a good document management system. And these are all things that Microsoft 365 and SharePoint can provide. It's for this reason most of us on here today are probably already using Microsoft 365 or SharePoint to store and manage documents. You might be using file shares or another system and considering moving to SharePoint. Maybe you've started using Teams to collaborate and are finding it hard to manage the proliferation of team sites and files that are within them. Perhaps you're also wanting to store emails in SharePoint along with your documents. Whatever the case, SharePoint, while being a great platform for managing documents, it does pose a few challenges, particularly around being able to easily find the required location to save and work with your files amongst the many team sites and libraries you might have. Sure, you can bookmark places, that's the common practice, but it's the places you don't know or that you have to go and find first to bookmark that can make that very onerous and time consuming. Wouldn't it be great if all your emails and documents for a particular project, matter, etc., were all in the same place, available to everybody on that project or matter, and you're able to easily visualize your SharePoint structure in a familiar way? It's often the reason organizations using SharePoint make use of OneDrive. They do that so they can sync libraries to their local hard drives and provide a familiar Windows Explorer-like interface. And while this can address or partially address some of the navigation challenges, it can also introduce other problems like the extra administration, occasional synchronisation type issues, and less functional search. Today, I'm going to show you how quickly and easily you can install MacroView DMS and add the MacroView document email solution to your SharePoint DMS to address all these challenges. So whether you are new to MacroView, an existing user, or a partner or potential partner, at the end of this session, you'll understand how easy it is to implement MacroView DMS and make working with SharePoint as simple as working with a file share, amongst many other things. So what I'm going to go through today is a couple of things I'll cover. First of all, I'm going to cover the sort of just installation and activation and initial configuration of your evaluation or your client. And if you want to, and as soon as you've completed that step, you'll immediately be able to start getting value from MacroView DMS. But then I want to talk about setting up an area in SharePoint that's ideal for working with your files and emails. And then I'll give a brief overview. This is by no means a full demo here. We can arrange those if you're interested. But I'll give you a brief overview of the key features and the key layout of what you get, which should be very familiar anyway. Then I'd like to, I'll cover how you can start extending that evaluation out to a team or even your entire organization. So we'll cover some central configuration and deployment type options. The session will take about an hour in total, with some time, as I said, at the end for some question and answer, and I'll be recording it. So you can revisit later. We'll send it out to you after the session, so you can revisit anything you might miss or forget. We've got a bit to cover, so I'm going to get cracking. Let's show you how you can add MacroView DMS to address some of these issues we've mentioned and supercharge your DMS. I'm just going to pop out here, and we're going to start with the first thing we need to look at is installation and activation, or where you can start your evaluation or get hold of the installer. And then we need to connect it up and register your SharePoint server or tenant. So to do this, if you're new to MacroView, you can simply come to our website here at macroview365.com, click on the Get Started button and choose a free trial. Select the product that you want to evaluate. I'm going to show you the professional package today. Complete this form, hit submit, and that will drop you off to a page where you can download the installer. If you're an existing MacroView user, you may have access to come through our help center, where you've got the knowledge base and a lot of other information, and a lot of this is available to anyone as well. This is at support.macroview365. But as an existing customer, you'll be able to go to the download section to access the products you have download rights for, including your DMS solution. I've already downloaded the file, and I'm just going to run it now from my desktop. Straightforward installation. Now, depending on where you've installed it from, if you've installed this as an evaluator off the website, it will immediately kick you into a wizard that will ask you to sign into SharePoint, and it will set up and register your SharePoint tenant in your OneDrive area. If you've come from the version for existing customers, that process will kick off the first time you start the application, and that's the way I'll be doing it today. Right, so we now have MacroView DMS installed. I'm just going to switch back to my desktop. And MacroView has been installed, so you'll have this desktop icon to access MacroView DMS Explorer. And I'll start that now. As I said, the first time we've connected, it's now going to ask me to sign in. I can also sign in if I'm using on-premise servers. I'm showing you the online registration today. I'll sign in, and it will now identify my SharePoint area and configure my environment to get me started. So let's now take a quick look around DMS Explorer, and it should, in many ways, look very familiar. It's just like Windows Explorer. So this is sort of just a brief overview. I'll show you a little bit more of it in a moment. So our Explorer view, just like a Windows Explorer, will have a nice tree view here that allows you to expand and navigate your structure. And as I mentioned earlier, visualize it in a nice hierarchical way. I haven't had to go and find locations. They're all discovered based on permissions. So you'll only see what you have permissions to see, but we immediately represent that area so that I can now drill down through hub sites. In this case, I've got and various sites and libraries. Right, when I get to libraries in SharePoint, we now start showing that stuff over here in the file list as you would in Windows Explorer. And as you select items in this file list, you'll get a preview of those documents below. And working with them then becomes just a double click to work with them. And it's just drag and drop. So I can drag and drop from my desktop, from anywhere else in and out. I can drag it in and out of here. And I can even drag from one location to another within here. All right, so it's very much like Windows Explorer. Besides the preview pane, obviously the file list has a bunch of other functionality here, and this is surfacing straight from SharePoint. So I'm seeing the views that are in SharePoint, etc. here. As I said, I'll get into this a little bit more detail later. The other place where you might where it surfaces in Word, Excel, PowerPoint. So when you're saving and opening, you'll use this interface, and I will be showing that a bit further on as well. And also Adobe Acrobat. But it also includes integration in Outlook. So I'm just going to quickly show you the integration in Outlook. Here I am in my Outlook. We're all familiar with having a tree of folders and things on the left that we can drag things to, whether they be personal or public folders. Introducing MacroView DMS will by default on the right hand side, you can configure that, but we will present that same tree now on the right hand side. So when I'm using Outlook normally to navigate my Exchange store, but if I go and select on the right hand side here, the center of your Outlook pane now is showing the content that is sitting up in SharePoint. And it's not just emails, it's any files up in SharePoint, so you've got access to all the full document management capability from while you're working in Outlook. So I can see my files here. If I do happen to have emails there, and I'm just going to pop to an emails view, and I'll just make it recursive so it looks through all the subfolders. You can see that if it has been emails saved there, they're here with their nice metadata, etc., which is going to come about as we add our MacroView the document email solution. So I can view my emails from here, and just like I could double click with a document, I can double click on an email to open it from SharePoint to forward or reply. Okay, so that's just a quick snapshot of where you see that surface, and I'll get into that a little bit more later. What I'd like to do though first is just complete the installation. So at our base level, you can you don't actually need this installer. You can just install an app that you can get from within Outlook if you're evaluating it. And it can be on your phone or any device, your phone, your mobile, OWA. So just for something different, I'll do it in OWA in this case. I'll just switch across to my mail in Outlook Web Access. And here I'm going to install Add App. I want to add an app. Search for MacroView. And then I can add the MacroView Mail application. Now at our base level, you can use just this application to have access to save emails and work. I'll show you that working later too, but you can save your emails when you're on your mobile devices. When you get the Outlook integration or the full Office integration that I'm showing you today, that application is available. It comes with it. So now, if I'm in my OWA environment or on my mobile, I don't have the MacroView rich tree here, but when I select an email that I want to work with, I can actually access the app from here and navigate my structure to save the emails or the emails and attachments. Or if I'm composing an email, I can actually insert files from SharePoint. So as a first step, you're now up and running. It's taken far less than 30 minutes. It's taken you 5 minutes, and you actually are immediately able to start working with whatever your SharePoint environment is, because we've discovered, surfaced it, and given you access to it. And nothing we're doing here in any way prevents you working through the browser separately. If you do something in the browser, it will be reflected here, etc. So it's you're up and running already. That's how easy it is. So now I want to look at the second stage, which is, well, that's great. Now I want to put in some libraries where I can actually get good metadata capture, particularly if I'm working with emails, and set up an area that I can do a proper test with. Now, if you're brand new to MacroView, we'd recommend you probably use a new site or team initially, but it can be an existing area as well. And I'll just show you both of those working. So what I'm going to do here, I've actually got a hub site here. Now I'm seeing everything initially. I've actually got settings I can do to control what I see in this tree as well. But because this is a fresh installation, by default, it just shows everything. But I've got I've got a site here underneath, or a team site here under my webinars hub. If I expand that, if I wanted to create a brand new team, yes, I can do it in Microsoft Teams, and then it will surface here. But I can also, if I wish, right-click provision, run up a new team or new site, and actually just create it here, and immediately say apply our MacroView's document and email management team solution. What I'm going to do today instead is actually apply it to an existing one. So I'm going to right-click on that, provision, and add the site collection components. Excuse me. And the list you're seeing here of solutions will vary depending on what you're licensed for with MacroView. We have some other solutions. Out of the box, you'll always get the document and email one. And if we've built you a custom solution, which is a capability we do for a lot of clients with your own metadata design, etc., through our consultants, that will be on here as well. So you, without needing to go to SharePoint, you can just right-click and create a new library that suits your needs. So I'm just going to pick this one and say go, and it will go off and update that team site with the components it needs for the MacroView document and email solution. So that's creating a number of content types, a number of metadata columns, and turning on a few site features. It will take just a few seconds. Could be done any moment. It's perhaps having a all right, so there it is. I've now added that solution. Now, by adding that solution to the site, I haven't impacted any existing libraries. There's the existing document library. There's the existing document library that's in that team, and below it the general folder or channel, and you can see, it's got the all documents view. So we haven't actually impacted anything. We've just added some components to the site. The next level then is to say, well, now I want to either, as I could with a site, I can now either start adding the solution to an existing library or create a new library. So I'll do both of those. I'll just create I'll just right-click here on that team. I wanted to provision a new library. Do apologise. So I'm picking this once again, picking the solution that I want, the document and email one here, and I'll create a brand new library that's ready to go. And equally, I could right-click on the existing library and use the add option to do the same. So now I have a library here ready to go, ready to use and manage your documents and emails. You'll see that a number of different views have been added. There's no content here yet, but we can now just start dragging and dropping files up and to and from this area, which is what I'm about to get into and show you. So now I'll give you a bit more of an overview. So let's first of all look a little bit further at this tree. So let's first of all have a bit better look at this tree view. As I said, you can turn on number of features. There's a wide range of features to decide how you want things presented, what you want hidden. But as I said, it gives you an explorer-like view of your structure, and it's a discovery. You can search for place. You can search if you don't know where something is. Right, I could search this way to jump straight to the area that I want. And it's got a very rich right-click menu, so I can filter here to actually do some searching or search this particular area, etc. So that's the tree view. In our default modes, which is a browse mode. Now, as I said, when you get down to a point where you have a library and there can be content, you'll see that on the right-hand side here. And when you start selecting that content, you'll see the preview below. And I'll put some files in a moment. We'll see that. You've also got a favorites mode. So obviously this tree can be very large. We might decide we want to work with this area frequently. So yes, you can still favorite, but you can always come back to this browse mode to actually see the areas that you actually have permission to, and search and find those much more easily. So I could actually come here. I'll just add to favorites and choose. I'll call it the DM. I'll just leave it as the DMS in 30, and I can pin that in my favorites. So favorites mode then becomes, and it can be a default mode when you start up. It will give you access to the areas you've pinned and anywhere below them. So you see, I'm not restricted to just that there. I can actually drill right down into the actual content. And from here, I've got a recents mode, which is fairly obvious, but it will show you any areas that we've just been playing with. And that's where I was showing you earlier, or any files we've touched, which we haven't. We've only touched the one email that I opened so far. So you can very quickly find the things that you've been working with recently. And search is a very powerful mode. We'll be running a separate webinar on detailed configuration for search panels, but these are quite configurable. So integrated into your Office environment, you can be searching your SharePoint environment across metadata for emails, etc. And we do, and these are quite configurable, centrally configurable, and fairly easy to create. I'll show you that in the later in the session. So there's these 4 modes, and I'll just, for the purpose of this piece, I'm just going to go back to an area that has a little bit more content, just to show you a couple of those other key features I jumped over. So I've mentioned obviously the file list here. As I said, I can actually switch my view. Any view can be toggled here just to say remove all the folders. I want to see a flat list of all the emails across all the areas within this particular thing, all those subfolders. So I'm now looking at all the emails across there, and there's more than 50 I can page through. But I've also got filtering. You know, I can filter to only show the things that were to column, to bring those lists down. I can search across those, and there's a number of other functions here in the ribbon, including functions to create a brand new document straight from here as well. So I haven't had to go to the browser. I'm just working with it as if it's File Explorer, but getting all the functionality that's available to me from SharePoint. All right. How about I pop back and show you in that webinar area again. This is the area we set up for our solution. So I could just simply go into a folder here, grab a bunch of files. I can just grab 4 of them at the moment. I can drag and drop them into the file list here. I might look at drag and dropping the rest. I can drop them over via the tree view as well. So there's just simple drag and drop to get some content in there. As this is a fresh installation, it's prompting me to let me know that the files have been uploaded, but I can choose to turn that off if I don't want to be told that every time. So now I refresh that view. There's those 8 files ready for me to work with straight from SharePoint, and previewed below. So what I'll very quickly show Now, and I mentioned the file list has quite a long, rich menu. So does the file. So if I right-click here, I can get to its version history. I can get to a number of functions if I want to send it as a PDF, etc. So all from File Explorer. That's where we're surfacing SharePoint functionality that you might otherwise not have. Apologise, I picked up a little bit of a cough. If you're working, we've shown you this is a Windows Explorer and the experience in Outlook, but I'll just quickly show you too. If you decide you're working in Microsoft, you might be starting in Microsoft Word or perhaps Adobe. You're not always starting with an existing file up in SharePoint. You're working in an application and you want to save a file to SharePoint, or you're in that application and you want to open the file out of SharePoint without going to Explorer. I'll just start a blank document here. So if I was doing a brand new document here, I can hit, say, I got buttons with the MacroView DMS on my ribbon, save to SharePoint, and we will then get the familiar, exactly that Explorer interface that we're used to when we're saving files with the SharePoint structure. All my modes are available where I can actually now say I would like to save that file to here. I'll just leave it and call it just document 1, and we say save, right? So that file's now saved to SharePoint, and I'm working on a file that's up in SharePoint. So it's just that nice, easy interface. Likewise, if I was wanting to work on a different file, I might just quickly highlight some text there, save the change, just so that we can see the effect of that later on. So I just close that, close that document. Yes, please check it in. Now, once again, the check-in, check-outs, because is if that can be set to be default or not default in our product if you use co-authoring, for instance. But likewise, I can also do open from SharePoint just as easily to navigate that structure, find the modified date on a file. There it is there. Yep, and I can double click on that file to open it. Okay, so that's the same through PowerPoint, Excel, and Adobe. Just popping over to Outlook. The key difference in Outlook, obviously, is it's not that different in that I can go straight to those same areas. Either I'm in browse mode, but I could do it through favorites as well. If I go to this library, there's all the files I've been working with, and I can access those files by double clicking them here as easily as I could from the Explorer view. But what's nice about here with the email integration, I'm going to start storing emails in the same spot. So let me just say right click, and I'll do create folder. Now everything on these menus is dependent on your permissions in SharePoint, right? It won't allow you to do anything you can't otherwise do. I'm actually going to create a folder called emails, but you can obviously create whatever folders you like, but I'll just put them in a nice thing here. So now I can actually go to my inbox in SharePoint, and it's simply a case of drag and dropping my emails over to save them. Right, I can save a single email. If I want, I can grab multiple. I'll just drag a few of these over, and this is storing them, capturing a lot of metadata, making sure they're unique, so it's removing duplicates. If 100 copies of the same email are saved to the same folder, it will only keep the one copy. This one here that I saved had an attachment. I can just drag the attachment out, and I just might put that in the, well, I'll put that, I can put that in that folder as well. That will show how the views can filter them, right? So I can upload files as well. There's one down here, maybe I'll put a Word doc, there's a PDF. So let me just put a couple of files in here. There's a PDF. So you can see I can just pull them straight out of attachments in a Word document. It's as simple as that. Then if I go across and click in that folder, here I am, here's my emails, here's my Word, here's my all those files I've saved. If I switch to the emails view, I'll only see emails with all their metadata. And if I I can just look at PDF documents, etc. If I right click on an email, you'll see that we are capturing a large number of metadata columns. All of this metadata is being captured without the user doing anything, which makes it all available for search. So lastly, before we get off this demo piece, I just want to show you our options dialog, just to give you a feel for how we've got an out-of-the-box default installation you're seeing here, but it's very configurable to suit your business requirements. So there's a number of settings we can do here to decide if certain types of buttons are available or functions are available. We'll get to this one a little later, but we can say where our search panels are coming from so that they can be defined centrally and everyone's sharing them. The server node here, you can see with the evaluation, it's immediately set up those two servers. You could remove the OneDrive one if you like, or you can even add new servers here as well. Right? Now that obviously when it comes to licensing, you get a single tenant and your OneDrive area, or a single server, but we have a multi-server license if you want more than that. You can configure how Office behaves, whether things are automatically checked out or not. That's that co-authoring question. You have hundreds of settings here around appearance. One of them here is at the moment, my OneDrive sites are showing all. So I'm just going to change that. They say to only show my own. I believe that setting will only apply when I next start Outlook or DMS, but you can see if I've expanded this at the moment, well, there you go. It's now picked that up and it's only showing me mine. Whereas without that, it would show me mine and all my colleagues. I still won't be able to see or work with their files that I don't have permissions to, but if they're shared stuff with me, I'll have access to it. Okay. So yeah, quite an extensive options dialog. And the last two things is also obviously the search mode. I mentioned that search. All these modes are available in Outlook as well. So favorites, recents, you can see as we've been doing more, we've now got more recent locations showing. Search, out of the box, there's a keyword search and there's an email search. A little bit of work to configure your email search, but as I said, we'll have a separate webinar taking you through that in detail. But our help set has plenty of articles on how to do those. But for instance, here I can actually I can say, look, search for all emails that are to Colin, and I'm searching across my entire SharePoint environment. Or I can scope my search to be anywhere in that tree by right-clicking on the tree location and saying search this location. But at the moment, I'm searching across my entire environment, so there's over 8,000 there. I might look at the ones that just came from David. Right, so you can see, and you can add your own metadata columns here as well if they're in your environment. If I find an email, fantastic. I can preview it here. I can double click and open and forward a reply. It's that easy. Or I can right click and say open that file location, jump across to browse mode and take me to where that file was located. So I can find that project very quickly, and now I've got access to all of the other files in that same location. So that's search mode. The last thing I want to show you, and then we'll pop out of this session, is to talk about the Mail app. So this is all on your rich desktop. So this is allowing me to work when I'm Outlook in the office or on your laptop, etc. But if I'm on the train and I'm traveling home and an email comes in, I may well want to save that. Now, I can actually access that app, I said, from anywhere. So if I collapse our tree here, I can actually access it directly from Rich Client Outlook just by selecting an email here. And on the Home tab, you'll see if I go to apps, it looks like we have to add it here. So apologies. Well, actually, so I won't add it there, but I could access it from there. But I'll show you the same thing now, so you can also see it through OWA. So perhaps, and that's when I mentioned here. If I grabbed a particular email, you can see all those tags we're flagging to say they've been saved to SharePoint. I could grab this one here access our mail app. This could be on your Android or your iPhone, and I can get to my favorited locations, and I can navigate through my SharePoint, Teams, or OneDrive area. So I can actually use search or navigation to pop down to a particular location, and then when I'm happy, I can save that email. Or if it had attachments, I could choose that as well. So this is just a. Then when I come back to the office, that email that I've saved through here will be in Share. It will be sitting in my Outlook environment, looking just the same as others I've saved, with a category on it telling me it's been saved and where it's been saved. So the mail app is available. Okay, so now I've got a couple more. So I want to talk about moving your. You've now got your own area. You can actually do all the testing and playing you like. That can be an existing area or a new area, but we want to now extend this rollout to a group of people, a pilot group perhaps, or some testers, or maybe you're just ready to roll it out to your organization. There's a couple of steps here that we want to look at. You want to consider. First of all, each evaluation is sort of a 30-day. I've started a 30-day free evaluation. So you have different users installing the software that all have their own different expiry times. So one of the things you can do is bring those evaluations into line with an expiry date, and I'll touch on that. The other thing we might want to do is say, well, rather than have everyone go into that options dialog and deal with lots of settings, or I want to use centralized or search panels and configuration, is set up an area where I can centrally manage a team, a department, or as many different breakups as you like. And then finally, you just got to deploy the software, which you can do through group policy or Intune, as far as that, and the settings. So you can do all those things through Intune or group policy. But I'm also going to show you another cool way to do it, which is very popular because it takes away the IT element of needing your registry and or access to your registry, etc. So first of all, let's look at aligning the expiry date. The first step here is to contact our friendly staff at MacroView Services, and they'll provide you a license key. And with that key, you'll then be able to go to our licensing website. That's licensing.macroview.com.au. I'll send you links to I'll send you this information. And the first time you come in here, you'll need to sign in with one of your regular accounts, typically your Office 365 account, your Microsoft 365 account. And once I've already got an account, but if you first sign in here, it will just set you up. So it'll ask you for some name for your account, etc. And you'll need to grant authorization for it to work with our licensing site. If you don't have that access, you'll need to talk to your IT. But once you've done that and you come in here, you'll run to licenses, activate, punch the key in we said and your SharePoint tenant, follow the bouncing ball, and that will set an expiry date on your licenses, which will then be visible here. And all of your users will automatically pick up that license file and now have a common expiry date. So you can be running your 2-week or 3-week proof of concept or trial. So that's all you need to do to get your licensing going. The next step, we can pop out of there now, and I'm just going to pop back to. I could do this from once again. I can do all of these things I'm about to do either from Outlook or Explorer. I'm going to work in the Explorer interface. But the next thing I want to do is say, well, that's great, but I now want to actually manage this test, and I want to set up a central area where I configure it. If you don't want to go through the trouble of group policy and Intune and all those deployments, a great way of doing that, or a way you may just choose to do it, is to create what we call a solution resource library. And this could be created anywhere in your environment as long as people have read access to it. But for this, I'll just go and create it in this same area we've just set up. So I'm now going to use that provision option again. I'm going to provision a new library. And this time, instead of a document email library, I'm going to provision a MacroView resource library and give it a name. Now, I mentioned before we can do custom solutions, and if we've done that for you, you would just pick, I want a custom resource library. That resource library will hold your solution definition. I'll do that at the moment, but so I simply do that. In this case, I'm going to pick a file from a resource. It's just a zip file which holds the solution. I'm going to hit OK, and it will very quickly create my resource library. As I said, that can be created anywhere. So there it is, resource library. If I open that up, it's got a standard structure and with a number of files for different areas where I can configure things, nodes I want to hide in the tree here, document templates that I want to show up on my new menu, search panels, as I've mentioned, manage filing rules, which is an add-on option for MacroView to do some automatic email filing. So you've got, besides personal rules, that's having centrally managed rules that actually will tag and save emails, conversations in the right spot for you automatically. You can also set all the settings that you could have set via the registry in this config folder, and any customizations or perhaps this language folder if you want to rebrand and change the labels of different parts in the UI. All of that stuff's available through that resource library. Okay. So what I'll do now, though, so the next step, though, obviously, if I want to use that resource library, is I need to be pointed at it. So I do that by going to File, into our Options dialog, and there's a couple of settings. There's a setting I can say is where I'd like my search panel to be. So I'm actually going to go to that resource library, and so I want you to use that folder there for your resource library for my search panels. I can also, but the main one is under support here where it says, where is my central configuration location? So here, I'm just going to pick that library, that resource library, apply. Now, I'll actually, it will automatically, anyone that has it installed and literally just points at this resource library, then will start picking up all these settings. So you've actually done the job for yourself. You just need to repeat for others, install the software and point to that location. But one of the things, it will refresh automatically at an interval which you can configure, but I can also force it here, just as I can force a license refresh as well. So let me just say OK there. So now the settings I have up in this resource library are controlling my functions and environment. So let's have a look now at those files, briefly at some of those files. So you can see the default one, there's a number of furniture nodes in the tree that you might not want to see, like this catalog one coming as a result of the hub site. Once I'm now pointing that, you can see that this file has that library defined. You can add and edit this file. So if I was to now refresh this site, you can see that node's now gone. So I don't have to live with that now. So that's an example of I just got to manage that centrally. Now on our roadmap, we're actually looking at a UI for you to manage this, to actually work with this resource library. The bit I'm sort of showing you now is a little bit technical, but it's really for your administrator, and there's some good documentation or our support team that can help. So templates I mentioned is just a bunch of can be structure as well, folder structure as well, but folder document templates or office templates if I want to be able to create them from this new menu. I'm not seeing them there at the moment because there's an option I want to turn on. So if I just go to File, Options, and I want to be able to say show the office document option on my new menu. Right, so if I now refresh here, I can now go here and access any documents that I've uploaded for that resource library. So I can have a number of templates available to that team, the team using that resource library, wherever they go in SharePoint, that simply. The search panel folder, just back in my resource library again, the search panel folder, the one thing I need to do here is there's a sample default search panel, but what I want to do here is just, once again, right click, rename, and you just change that to your tenant name. So it's right, so you just name that to match your tenant so that it will pick it up. Now that's relevant because if you did have multiple servers here, it knows which search panel to pick up based on the server you select. And that's just a file, once again, which can be changed to very quickly. I'm just going to open one and do one quick change in here. So I could just open this search panel. And just so you can see the effects, so it's quite, they're technical, as I said, but there's good documentation and there's not a lot to them. So a whole search panel is just listing the controls I want to see and the search panels I want to, the search results I want to see. But I said we'll cover this off in another session. But just to show you the effect, if I was to very quickly just change that name, file, save. So by having updated the name of that search panel in that XML file, now anyone pointing at this resource library, once those things are refreshed, so I'm just going to force that one more time so that we get a speedy result. If I now go across to search mode and I do run into a, it will update there. It will update there shortly. All right, so it would that's all it would take to do the effect. I think it just hasn't synchronized down yet. So that's how I can configure a search in which I add extra controls to my search panels or even add additional searches here. Next, next I want to pop back to that browse mode again, go to my resource library. I just want to quickly touch on a couple of others and then we'll move into question and answer. So if I go to the resource library, we can we can configure language, but the main one you're probably going to want to do is manage a bunch of settings. So what I'll do here, there's a file here. This is actually controlling my settings. So the only setting that by default it's locking down there is the create library button. That's because you can use the provision option, but you could change that. And there's a file here with a bunch of settings that I can actually use. So let me just open this with to edit. And I will also open the sample file. And I'll just say I'll just copy that. So I'm going to copy all the settings over for ease and just replace this file here before I save it again. So I save the changes. So I'm updating the one that is called user options. I'll just open it one more time, actually. If I open it one more time, I might just very quickly do a couple of things just so you can see it working. Look, I didn't want the create library button to be visible. So right, it's false. I might have wanted to say when I go out to my team here, I don't want anyone's to see anything other than their own OneDrive area. Right, so this is where you refer to the documentation around what you can set here. My search panel location. So rather than actually have to set that individual setting and them have to, if I only want to set the resource file location, I can right click on this search panel, copy as link, and then back in that configuration file, I can actually come along here and say, where is my client side search masks? There it is there. I want that located there. And now the other thing is anything I put down here, I've now locked down for that user. So there may be things that I want to say, I don't want to make people that inform of successful save, which was the one where people, when you save something, you pop that dialogue up. I want people to be able to decide whether they want to turn that on or off. I can just take that out of this file. Right. So file save, do a refresh. I'll close that down here. I'll come into my options and I said this and do another refresh. These refreshes aren't necessary normally. It's just because I'm trying to get an immediate result. Now, if I go straight back here, you can see straight away now all these options are being locked down with whatever mode they're set. Informing successful save, the user can still dictate. If I go to the advanced setting, it's now not showing anyone else's sites and they can't change that, right? So basically that's how I can easily now manage it. So to extend this evaluation out to someone else, you literally, other users, we need to install the client and we need to deploy. It will activate, it will ask them to sign in and set up their server. And then they just need to set that setting to say point to this resource library. And you can have different resource libraries with its different configurations, and you're off and running. Okay. So I'm just going to now, we've got 10 minutes to go. I'm just going to pop back to the PowerPoint slide here. And just quickly recap, single user, install the software in the mail app. It'll register your tenant, you get your 30-day trial. You start right-clicking and creating yourself an area to work with or use an existing area. And then you can use those right-click provision options to set up an area that's ready for use. If you want a team evaluation, you can get a license key to align them, and that's optional. You still can have people working to a different expiry, but then you also have the option to create that central resource library where you're going to manage the configuration. And then for further deployment, you just need to install the software and point them at that resource library and then repeat. And you have supercharged your productivity. You can you can get all the benefits you're getting of that interface while still also having the option to keep working in the browser where necessary. So I would like now to sort of just open the floor a little bit to questions if anyone has any. I'm just going to pop back to the teams there to see if anyone has raised any questions. Yes, I've got a couple here, and I'll look at. So, is the version history SharePoint own version history and separate versioning from MacroView? Yes, absolutely. So, all of this stuff is SharePoint. SharePoint versioning, absolutely. As with everything else, there's something one thing I didn't show you with the views when you're looking. Sometimes people have their own preference for reordering columns or and what metadata they see. You can do that all through the MacroView interface, and then you can save it as a personal view, and that personal view is saved in SharePoint. So if you go to the browser, that view's there as well. All right, so yes, everything we do is done to the SharePoint platform so that it's as well, so that it's there if you come through the browser. So thank you, good question. And there's been a question copied into Q&A. Let me just check that one here. Right, how quickly does a reconfigured search take to update without a forced refresh? Because I was actually playing with the location, and the location has to come down first before the search panels can. That's why I had a slight, I'm experiencing a slight delay. But once you set that location, if you make a change to the search panel, you don't even have to wait. The user next in the interface, and I might be able to just quickly pop back to that here. As far as a search panel, it will happen when they restart at any point when they restart, etc. naturally. But search panels, you can literally just say, look, I want the refresh here, please, right, to pull it down. So it can be as soon as you make the change. It's not so much when you change the setting location, but if I go in and edit the file and change something on that file, a refresh will automatically update that. So another good question. Can I hide the default folders in SharePoint that appear example documents? Absolutely. Not so much the folders, but if you're talking about documents here, which is a library, yes. So you can configure them to hide using that central resource location, saying the libraries you don't want to see, but that is an all or nothing type setting. So you would be hiding the documents library in all sites, not site specific. If you wanted to hide things site specific, you'd be using permissions in SharePoint, and we will respect those. So another good question. Another question here, how to make MacroView performance better when doing data migration on different sites. I'll have to obviously take that to understand what you mean by better. There's a lot of variables there, right? So first of all, you're dealing with the cloud here in these things, so there is network elements as well. But there is, but you may well have very specific scenarios. It could be things in your environment sometimes that are slowing things down. It may well be that there is some settings or things that we could change that would improve that performance. So the person that raised that question, please reach out to our support team, and they'll be more than happy to help you. Question here, I use OneDrive daily, so want to retain this function alongside SharePoint. Well, that's some good news, right? So even though I'm sort of saying the benefit of this Explorer is you are bypassing the OneDrive on your desktop, and therefore getting around some synchronization issues, it doesn't exclude having OneDrive syncing and the things coming down to your desktop. So if you choose to open that way, it's fine. And if you're updating that way and it's uploaded to SharePoint, it'll be reflected in our product too, right? So they're not mutually exclusive. It's just when you're connected, it can be much more efficient to go direct. Particularly when you start getting to that search capability, because when you're using OneDrive and then you're sitting in your OneDrive synced file explorer type view, you've lost all your real good search panels around metadata and all that sort of capability which you have in SharePoint. So you can use both. If an email has a slight variation, can I assume MacroView will still save it? Yes, you can. I'm not sure specifically what you mean by slight variation, but MacroView will, with your drag and drop email, will save every unique email, but it won't save duplicates. And it has it uses a very unique naming system to ensure that an email is a duplicate. It is near impossible using the default naming convention to duplicate the saving of the same email. However, you can configure a different naming format if you wish. It's not really necessary with emails because you're using the metadata to navigate them. You can configure your own, but there's some good documentation, the sort of the pitfalls and the making sure that you want to guarantee that uniqueness. Otherwise, you can have lots of emails with the same name, and then you're going to be starting to saving them over each other as different versions. Good. These questions are coming, which is great, and we're just about out of time, so I'm just going to do. There's one more I'll do here. Is the version history? Oh no, so that's the SharePoint one has come across, right? So around the version history, I've already answered. So what we might wrap up here as we've hit the time. This slide here, and it'll be in the deck we provide you, has links to a number of good resources. So our website, which is where you can get the evaluation anytime you like, our Hub Center, where you can get good knowledge-based articles or the downloads if you're an existing customer. We have a YouTube site with a lot of really useful videos, and you can contact our friendly services or support teams to assist you. And then I've got some links here to some information around that central configuration, right? So about the provisioning extension, the licensing website, and how to use the resource library, or some information on using group policy in Intune. So with that, I'd just like to thank you all very much for attending. I hope you learnt something today, and particularly how easy it is to implement, and that the impact is minimal, so it's just value add. So you give it a try, and we're sure you're going to like it. So get onto our website and start your evaluation and start supercharging your DMS today. So I'll thank you there, and we'll finish up. Have a nice day, everybody.